This strategy can literally save tens of thousands of dollars for physicians. You have a ton of experience in this space. It's helped you save hundreds of thousands in taxes. You don't pay taxes. So this is a very strong strategy that we want to make sure that our physician listeners are aware of. Welcome back to another episode of Wealth Wednesday. I'm your host, Nate Crannell, joined today as always by my co-host, Mike Neubauer. Mike, we are talking about the short-term rental loophole. This strategy can literally save tens of thousands of dollars for physicians. And I want to use today for us to explain what's going on with that loophole, how can physicians utilize it, what are the outcomes that come from it. This is something that has been used for quite some time. We recently had an anesthesiologist in our family office, the Grand Vision family office, ask us about this loophole. She wants to move forward and take action with it. You have a ton of experience in this space. It's helped you save hundreds of thousands in taxes. You don't pay taxes. So this is a very strong strategy that we want to make sure that our physician listeners are aware of.
Yeah, man. I mean, this is going to be one of the best strategies because what I utilize to not have to pay income taxes, it's been a while that I've had to pay them. And really, we talk about how the tax code is written as a way to incentivize us. So the only reason I don't have to pay income taxes is because I utilize the IRS's incentives. I do what they tell me to do, and I get rewarded without paying taxes. That's the reward for doing so. So the short-term rental loophole is basically a way for somebody to take advantage of the real estate depreciation against their taxes without actually having to be a real estate professional, where you work 750 hours plus in real estate, you materially participate. It removes that huge burden of having to meet those requirements because it's using specifically a short-term rental as opposed to a long-term rental. And that short-term rental gives those additional benefits, which are not having to meet such a high bar to qualify for those tax benefits.
For sure. Let's talk about the obstacle that is in the way right now. So physicians, it's kind of a double-edged sword, right? They're high income earners, but in turn, they're high taxpayers, right? And so this is a great way for physicians to reduce their taxable income. Nobody likes to pay taxes. Nobody likes to donate to the government. What's the intrigue? What is the, that relatable problem that all physicians have? What's the intrigue for them to say, hey, the short-term, rental loophole, I should look into this a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, the intrigue, right, is going to be not paying taxes. So if you pay taxes, let's just say your tax bill was $100,000 to make life very easy. If we can get a reduction, a write-off against the taxes using real estate, we can change that tax bill from being, say, $100,000, and we can maybe bring it down to only paying $80,000. So that's 20 grand of actual cash that's going back into your bank account, not into the government's bank account. So I think the intrigue and the benefit is obvious. It's very simple. Everybody would like to have more money, and depending how far you push it, you can reduce taxes like I do all the way down to zero. You can just get a 20% reduction, and anywhere in between. Depends how hard you want to go at it. The downside, why people don't utilize this, because it takes effort and work. There is no, as much as we see Instagram reels that says, this write-off, you can reduce taxes, but they fail to always mention the work behind that write-off. There's never a free meal with the IRS. The only way you get the write-off is you put in the work and you take advantage of the incentive. So for a physician, that's why most don't utilize this, is because it takes a new level of investing. It's not a vanilla strategy, just put into your 401k. This is legitimate real estate investing. You're going and buying a property and managing it. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, it's a new strategy, so you have to document hours. You have to actually pay attention to what you're doing. It's not as easy as just money coming out of your paycheck and going into a 401k. There's actual business that needs to be run here in managing an Airbnb. And then the third thing is, it takes actual hours. It actually, when you leave that job or your spouse is at home, you actually do have to put the time in to manage this property. Now, for, we don't want to use names, but for the anesthesiologist that's in our group that's utilizing this, the benefits are worth the effort that they have to put in. So as long as the benefits are worth it, this will work. If you're thinking, I want the easiest solution, I don't want to put any effort, there's really no tax strategy that comes with no effort on the backside. So we want to talk about today is for the people who say, I'm willing to put in the work because that $20,000 to $100,000 savings by doing it is well worth it. So we want to show those people, okay, if you're willing to put into the work, how do you do this appropriately? How do you actually take advantage of this and save on taxes?
Absolutely. And the anesthesiologist that we're referencing, she's a member in our Grand Vision family office. She knew, and I think many physicians know, that investing in real estate is a great strategy for them, just for their overall portfolio. She didn't understand that, not only the short-term rental loophole, but like the impact that this would have, on her taxable income. And so I think being in our family office, having us guiding her and holding her hand through this rental process, helping her as her and her husband are putting in the work that needs to be done, for us to be there as a guide, I think that's the reason she's taking that leap and starting this. Let's talk a little bit about the plan and the process, right? What are some of the steps that you've taken, in your own investment journey as it relates to real estate? What are some of the steps that you've taken that have created success? And what are some of the steps that someone who's just starting that short-term rental process, what should they be aware of, and what are some guidance to look out for?
So, I think the first thing which you mentioned is most people don't realize the benefit. So they look at a 401k, and we don't use this term, but everybody has told us it's a vanilla strategy, and they're sick of the vanilla. So that's why we use it now. But if you say the 401k is a vanilla strategy, and then you look at something like real estate, people only see the cash flow of real estate. It's a few $100 a month, or it's a few $1,000 a month. They miss all the side benefits of the real estate investment. And they're used to that because, for instance, a 401k, it only has a couple benefits that you're going to be able to utilize. It's kind of restricted. What you miss in real estate, and why the real estate is so strong for certain situations, is you get the cash flow. So that's somebody paying above and beyond what your expenses are each month. So that's actual money coming into your pocket. You get to utilize leverage, which means you could buy $1 million asset and you have control of $1 million, but maybe you only had to put $200,000 down to buy that $1 million property. So you're leveraging the bank to control $1 million and you're only utilizing $200,000. You get the appreciation. When appreciation grows, when somebody talks about a 401k and growth, they're talking about, let's say they take $200,000, they put it in a brokerage, and that grows by, let's say, 10%. They made $20,000. On the other side of the way this works is, in real estate, you have a $1 million property. If that $1 million property goes up in value at 10%, it's only 10% still, but it went up 10% on $1 million instead of $200,000. Plus, we get the depreciation, which offsets our taxes. So that's an actual loss against our taxes today that gives us actual money in our account right away. So people don't understand that the real estate has a lot more benefits than just what they see on the surface. And I think that's the biggest thing, is because people don't understand how all these pieces come together, and it's kind of overwhelming because each piece is its own little thing. It's hard to kind of put that puzzle together to understand the full package. I think that's why people shy away from some of these more advanced strategies. And I think that's why, for instance, in this situation, us being able to guide somebody along, we're able to say, hey, did you see that piece over there? That goes in the top right corner. And they can just build that puzzle piece a lot quicker. And then all of a sudden they have a full picture of the puzzle and they're like, oh, that was a lot easier than I thought. Now I'm ready. Let's go. So that's kind of where we're at right now is, you got to find all those pieces of the puzzle. And now we're at a point, the puzzle is laid before in this circumstance, and let's go find a property and actually execute on this thing now.
Yeah, so let's lean on that next point. That's a good segue because you've done a good job talking about the theory, right? What are some of the objectives, and then what is the desired outcome? If we follow all these objectives and these steps, here's the outcome we want. We want to pay less taxes. We want to get the depreciation. Now let's actually talk about, the action items. How do you actually go out and identify a property? What should you be looking for? What are some of the exit strategies that you should be thinking about? And then getting to the point of closing, because then my next question will be about, once you've actually closed on that property and it's yours, what are some of the steps? Well, let's talk about kind of those initial processes. How to identify a house, what to look for, what are some of the exit plans to consider?
Yeah, so we'll start with number one, how to identify a property. So the first thing is you need to decide, how much time do I actually have? And how much time am I willing to commit to this strategy? If you're willing to commit unlimited time, you could go buy a hotel. And now we're really crushing some taxes. If you're not willing to commit that level of time, then you start smaller and you go with a single family home as an Airbnb. And then of course, in between there would be a 2-unit, 4-unit, 5-unit, there's a mixture all in between there, but it all takes more time and effort the bigger it gets, but the rewards are greater the bigger it gets. So most people probably be starting with a single family house, maybe a duplex is what they'd be looking for. The key is that it has to be an average stay of less than 7 days. So you can't put somebody in there for 1 month, 2 months, a year, because then you don't qualify for the short-term rental. We'll call it loophole. It's really, you don't qualify for the short-term rental kind of clause within the IRS code that makes you be able to use the depreciation. So you have to know we're going to do this for less than 7 days. So when you're identifying a property, it has to be planned that we're going to have rentals in here that are a week max, first and foremost. The next thing you want to look at then in that circumstance is this set up well for somebody who's going to be here only 7 days? Does the washer and dryer work and it's in the right location and it's very simple? Somebody staying for 7 days doesn't really want to be going to use a community washer and dryer. They want something nice and simple. They want the conveniences of a hotel plus a little bit more. So the other thing to look at is we're going to be doing a lot of cleaning in here. We want to maximize the size of the property without maximizing the amount of effort. So we want just a big enough property, but something that still can be turned over within a few hours. We can get it cleaned and have that next renter coming in, because we're not going to be doing long term. We're going to have people coming and going on a regular basis. Sometimes somebody will check out on a Saturday and somebody's checking in that afternoon. If it takes 8 hours to clean this monster house, that's just not going to work for this situation. So those are some of the things we're looking at. The other things we're looking at is area, because we need to be doing a lot of the work in order to qualify for this tax incentive. It really needs to be somewhere local to us. It can't be a vacation home hours away, because you really just can't qualify then. And then you want to look at too is grass cutting, snow removal. Those types of things are things that are going to have to be done before somebody checks in. So you need to know, all right, the grass can always be cut. We can always have snow removed. These are little things that, a hotel operator has to think of when they're operating. So when you're identifying the property, that's what you're looking for. The other thing is you have to make sure the property qualifies as an Airbnb. If you're looking in a town that doesn't allow Airbnbs or that requires certain licensing, you need to make sure that you can get that licensing. You don't want to move forward on a property and then find out, oh my God, I can't do short-term rentals here. And now this whole strategy is blown up because I missed that one key due diligence checkbox.
No, that is awesome. If I've heard you say that before, but if somebody hasn't ever thought about acquiring a property, it's their first time, and them hearing that, those are some great first steps. What are some things that, let's say you find a property, what's some of the due diligence that people should be thinking about, as you look at the property, and not to mention the things that you just talked about, but like knowing, okay, if I've done my due diligence, how do I now go and execute closing on this property and creating that Airbnb?
Okay, so let's back up one and do kind of the other side before we close on it. So first we identify a property that's going to work well as an Airbnb. But because this is a single family home, not a hotel, we need to keep in mind that what is our exit strategy down the road? Are we going to operate this Airbnb forever into the future? If we're going to do it forever, then we are less concerned about the exit strategy. But when we're buying a single family house, we need to remember we may not want to do this as an Airbnb forever. We may want to change this to a long-term rental. We may want to sell this property and upgrade in the future. So when we make this purchase, we need to be thinking, what is the exit strategy on the back end? Are we going to sell this as an Airbnb? Are we going to keep it forever, change it to a long-term rental, sell it as a regular home? So with that in mind, we need to be looking at the exit and the value on the exit. So if we buy this property for $400,000 because it's a great Airbnb, but the whole market in that area is $300,000 homes, that might not be the right game plan, because we just paid $400 for something that's really worth $300. So we want to look and make sure that we have multiple exit strategies available with this property, which makes a property in a suburban area, a city, somewhere where there's a lot of comparable properties buying and selling. We know that, okay, we can easily transition this to a rental. We can easily offload this and sell this property if we need to. We need to consider that. You don't want a property that it's so unique and so one of a kind that it works well as an Airbnb, but it has no alternative exit strategy. There's no way to rent it long term because it's just too unique. There's no way to sell it because nobody wants that unique property to live in. It's just an Airbnb. that is too limiting on the exit side of things, and that you never know what tomorrow brings. If you want to exit this investment, you have to have a game plan and know how you're going to do that. I am super excited to introduce to you the Doctors and Dollars 5-Day Financial Challenge. I'm Mike Neubauer, I'm CEO of Grand Vision Companies, and I'm the one that you see on the Wealth Wednesday and Daily Dollar episodes with Nate. So Nate and I are partnering again to do something even more exciting, which is the 5-Day Challenge. We're taking the best of all of our episodes, all of our expertise and knowledge, and we're condensing it into an impactful and purposeful 5-day presentation, 1 hour per day, for 5 days, to give you everything you need to build that foundation for your financial future. So if you're looking to gain the pieces, you want those puzzle pieces and find out how they fit in your financial plan, head over to the Doctors and Dollars website, join us on the 5-Day Challenge. We're putting it together for free, so you got nothing to lose. We look forward to seeing you on the inside.
Those are all great examples of an exit strategy, because I think far too often people read all these articles or they hear about a friend who went out and found a short-term rental that was really good, but they don't think about the back end or what are some of those ways to get out of it, because maybe they don't want to operate a short-term rental forever. Maybe they don't necessarily want a long-term tenant. And so they get stuck with this property without doing the proper due diligence and thinking about some of those back end exit strategies. So those were good examples. So we've talked about finding a property, doing your due diligence, thinking through some of those exit strategies. Let's talk first about, or I guess next, let's talk about the acquiring the property, actually closing on the property and setting it up as a short-term rental. And then a little bit, I'm going to ask you about how does this actually impact your taxes? What are the, putting that loophole or this clause into effect, how does it actually reduce your taxes? So let's talk about actually operating the short-term rental.
Yeah, so now you own the property and you got to put renters in there. So first thing, you got to clean it up and you got to kind of walk through. I would suggest having even a couple friends or family walk through as if they're a potential tenant. You know, they're going to stay somewhere for a short time at a hotel. What feels good? What feels out of place? What doesn't work well? You have, new dishes in there, pots and pans. Let them stay for a night and just cook dinner and see if something is missing. Was a wine bottle opener missing? Was there a spatula that they wanted to use and it wasn't there? Do a couple run-throughs with friends and family to make sure this is all set up, because those first reviews are going to be critical. So you got the property, you start setting it up, you do some run-throughs, now you have your first guests coming in. So now it's all about, you're going to start building out your processes to make life easier, but in the beginning, it's all you. Very much communicating back and forth, very casual, and you really just want to be thinking, put yourself in their shoes. They're coming for a short-term stay. How can I make it great for them? So anytime that there's an issue, any questions that they have, you want to kind of think and be a step ahead of that. Hey, when you come to the house, you're going to see 2 doors, one on the front, one on the side by the garage. The lockbox is on the one by the side by the garage. Here's the code. When you walk in, you'll see a welcome packet on the table. That has all the information. If you see something in there that doesn't make sense or you are missing information, I'll be available. Just feel free to text me and let me know. So you're starting to paint that picture for the person as they check in and to get comfortable within the home. So that's really the key. And then it's just a matter of just being a good human being and managing the phone. So make sure that you respond to text and or phone calls, messages within the app, and just think, how can I solve this problem? If something pops up, how can I immediately solve this? If you're not a handy person, before you have a problem, think of who the handyman is you're going to call. Have you called somebody for your house? Do you have a friend who's utilized a handy person before? But have that person kind of lined up, maybe even walk them through the house so they have a little bit of understanding to say, I do this Airbnb, I'm hoping nothing breaks, but I want to have somebody in place beforehand. Would you walk this house with me just so you have an idea of what it is? Take photos and videos of where is the water shut off, where is the electric breakers, so if something happens in an emergency, I can tell somebody real quick, here's how to solve it, and then call the handyman, he's on the way there. So you want to kind of think through some of these preemptive issues and be a step ahead of them. The other thing, this is only about taxes, you need to document every hour that you're working on this property. So if you're communicating back and forth, if you go and cut the grass, if you do cleaning at the property, you need to document all these hours, because the documented hours is how you qualify to use this against your taxes. So if you're concerned and you say, what if I get audited? This is how the audit will work in general right out of the gate. They will say, please send us a log of your time with this real estate project. If you don't have a log of any sort, it's a red flag, and now we're going deeper into this whole issue. the best first defense is have a log, have a very detailed process, take photos every time you're there, take a before and after photo of when you cut the grass, keep this documented log. So if something ever comes up in the future and you're questioned, you followed all the rules and you documented that you followed all the rules along the way. So you're doing all these things. Don't forget that as you do them, keep kind of a diary log of hours of what you did for this property as you go.
That is not only an extremely valuable insight that you just gave, but I feel like that's one of the biggest things, excuse me, that people miss, right? They get all excited about the Airbnb. They want to make it perfect. They almost, they make it look like a Pinterest board on the inside. They're getting renters. Things are rolling right along. They're making money. They get all excited. But then they kind of forget why they did the short-term rental in the first place for its tax advantages. And I think not logging your hours is the biggest thing. Some people are like, I'll just throw it together right before my accountant needs everything. And then you might miss something, or you might not have enough hours. You start logging everything and tracking, okay, here's what I did in October, November, December, and it's tax time, and you don't have enough hours to actually leverage this loophole. Let's shift, though, and talk about you have been operating the property for a while. Everything's going well. You have logged your hours, and now it's tax time. How does this short-term rental loophole, or to your point, the short-term rental clause within the IRS tax code, how does this affect a physician's taxable income?
So real estate has what's called depreciation. This is within the IRS tax code that basically a building and the land improvements will go down in value because this building is being used. It has a renter in there, so that value is becoming less and less because of the use of that building. It's depreciating. Depreciation is not an actual cash loss. It is just a loss on paper. And because it's a loss on paper, you're able to deduct that on your taxes. This is common through all of real estate. The reason the short-term rental one is because, like we talked about, there's less barriers to achieve the ability to use this depreciation against your W-2 income. So you do what's called a cost segregation study is what is key. And that's going to say, we bought this house for $500,000. This study is going to say, okay, this is what the land value is on this property. Let's call it $50,000. So now we're down to $450,000 is a building. Now it's going to break out of that $450,000. This is how much is a roof. This is how much is land improvements like landscaping. This is how much is electric. This is HVAC. It breaks all these out. And then your accountant utilizes this report to front load the things that depreciate on a shorter time period. So typically a residential property will depreciate over 27 and a half years, which means you just take that 450,000 divided by 27 and a half, and that's what your loss is every year. The cost segregation study says of that 450,000, really this is the amount that can be utilized in a shorter time period, and then your accountant utilizes those. So when you go do your taxes, you have your income, and then your short-term rental will report a loss based on the depreciation. That loss just comes right off of your income. So if you made $500,000, but you had depreciation of $100,000, it says you really only made $400,000, and then you pay taxes on $400,000 instead of paying taxes on the $500,000.
Which is drastically different, right? I mean, for a physician who's listening to this and says, "Oh, I make $500,000 a year," and there's a way to take $100,000 of taxable income off of that, is exciting, right? There's no way around it. There's the impact of that to your, not only your income taxes, but the actual cash back in your pocket because of the less tax that you're paying is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, here, let me give an example real quick. So
Yep.
An example real quick. This is what we talk about, and we try to help people understand the bigger picture, all the puzzle pieces, right? So somebody will say, I have to pay for my kids' schooling. It's going to be like 50 grand a year. I have to start saving and planning for paying this. And it's like, or you could just buy a short-term rental and you'll have 50 grand. Just buy one short-term rental for the next 4 years. You'll have 50 grand in cash that you didn't have because you gave it to the government, and now that'll be in your bank, and that pays for your kids' school. So rather than this long, drawn-out process of putting money into the 529 plan and trying to grow it here and trying all these random ways that just send more money to Wall Street, you can literally just buy a short-term rental this year, operate it, get the savings in your account. So now you own real estate. You take advantage of the leverage, the appreciation, the depreciation, the cash flow. You're getting all the benefits of real estate. And as a side benefit, you can now pay for your child's school without any of the extra stuff. And this is actual cash in your hands. So if your child decides they don't want to go to school or they decide to go to a cheaper school, you still just have the cash. It's not locked in some 529 plan that is meant for school. It is just such a simple way. Or you could say, I want to buy a new car. Instead of saving for a new car and just go buy one short-term rental. It'll give you all the cash back next year at tax time, and then go buy your car. Anytime you want something new, pay for schooling, do a new investment, buy a car. You could literally just say, anytime I want another 50 grand, I'm going to go buy a short-term rental, and I'm going to get more assets, which give me money back to buy that other thing. You know, I mean, it's just unbelievable to me that people get that tunnel vision of I have to do it this way, because there's options that are so much more beneficial. It's just, like I said, those puzzle pieces, when they're all over scattered, it's hard to know how do these puzzle pieces come together for one big picture. I think that's what I'm most excited about. That's what I love about, you know, doing the family office, kind of guiding these people, is you get to look at their whole big picture and see those light bulb moments of like, oh my God, I don't have to just pile money into a 529. I can just buy a short-term rental, save on taxes, it covers college, and I could do that and buy a car. Like, you start to see these light bulbs go off in people, and then you see that excitement, and they're like, I'm doing this. You know, it's like, all right, let's go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that was a good example, and I'm glad you cut me off, because that was I could see your excitement in there, right? Just being able to help people. So, yeah, sticking with the Grand Vision Family Office, our anesthesiologist member that's there, you know, she's already starting to take those steps. She's sending us different properties, saying, "Hey, what do you think about this one? What do you think about this one? You know, what's my exit strategy here? Here's the type of property it is and the location." Like, she's doing some of that due diligence on her own. We're obviously providing feedback to her as well. 6 months from now, she closes on this property. It's up and running. She's got a short-term rental going. You know, it's cash flowing every month. Things are going good. Talk about her side of things and what she can expect, and some of the success that she's going to feel, not from just a tax standpoint, but kind of the example you just gave of the exterior benefits outside of the tax return that the short-term rental loophole can give to a physician.
So, I mean, we talked about college, buying a car, all these different things. We'll use her example. Her example is she would like to start buying her time back. So we talk a lot about, I mean, we have the 5-day challenge. I think one of the days in there, right? We talk about buying your Monday back. So she agrees with this mindset. She wants to slowly buy her time back. The problem is, in order to do that, you feel like you have to put so much money into investments to buy back this time, and you feel like you're starting too late. You didn't start soon enough. How are you ever going to pull this off? So that is kind of the college tuition for her. She's really thinking, man, I want to be able to buy my time back quicker. I don't want to wait till 65 if I can do it earlier. So her strategy, rather than taking, for instance, $200,000 and just plowing it away into investments year after year, she's going to take that $200,000. She's going to do a short-term rental, which will give her an immediate tax benefit and basically return that capital to her via tax savings. So if you take $200,000 and you buy $1 million property, or call it $100,000 and you buy a $500,000 property, that's more single-family related time or amounts. $100,000 down, you buy a $500,000 property. Come tax time, you get that $100,000 back because the tax benefits were equal to $100,000, $50,000, whatever. It doesn't matter. You get that tax money back. So all you're doing is shifting money from the government to your bank account, and now you have this extra money that you didn't have last year, and now you start putting it into long-term investments. So she's basically utilizing short-term strategies that give an immediate tax benefit, and then taking this tax savings and putting it into long-term cash flowing assets, which will speed up buying her time back sooner and sooner. So it's kind of that synergistic effect of moving money around today, which buys time back in the future.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to see where her and her family go with this short-term rental. They're very excited about it. You can tell every communication that we have with her, she is just super excited to get this thing rolling. You've been providing some great feedback to her and how how that goes. So it's going to be a very cool thing. What would you say to folks who now that they've watched this and they're like, okay, now I need to start digging into the short-term rental? I've heard about it. Wasn't quite sure how it works. Now I see the benefits. What are some things that people should be doing to take action to really take that first step forward in lowering their taxable income?
Well, I think a few things. I think the 5-day challenge that you and I decided to put together, I think that's a huge place to build that foundation and just gain that mindset and understanding of these financial strategies. Start to understand, how do these actually work together? So I think doing the 5-day challenge is a great, just basic foundation. I think the thing that people get stuck with is they hear about all these strategies and they just start researching one puzzle piece. And then they hear about something else and they go research that puzzle piece. And then they hear about stocks and they do that. And then they hear about self-directed IRA and they focus on that. And they just bounce around, but they never step back to understand, where does this fit in? I see a lot of people get dead focused on one strategy. Let's say it's real estate, and they think that is the exact strategy because so-and-so told me it is. But big picture, there may be a strategy, a little puzzle piece right next to real estate that's actually better for them than the real estate is. So without that big picture view and without some sort of understanding and guidance, it's hard to see, how does this actually all come together. So I think gaining the foundation first and foremost, but then taking everything, every opportunity to learn with a big picture view and being willing to say, that strategy just doesn't work for me. So the short-term rental loophole, one of the best, if not the best strategies to reduce taxes right now for somebody who doesn't qualify for better opportunities. But if you step back and say, I really would hate to run an Airbnb, I really don't want to do that, then that puzzle piece may not be best for you. You may need to find a different one. So don't spend your time researching a short-term rental loophole and how to execute and how to do it if deep down you're thinking, I really don't want to do that. That doesn't fit with what I want to do. You need to be willing to step back and say, that's not for me. What else? There's got to be another opportunity. Oil and gas, long-term rental, syndications. There's a million other opportunities. So if you don't agree with one or it doesn't fit your lifestyle, be willing to just let that one go and step back and focus on another option. But that's kind of that whole big picture approach to having somebody that can see the big picture and understand when you use that puzzle piece and when you don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll echo the Doctors and Dollars 5-day financial challenge. I think is a good first step to getting that financial clarity. If you feel like you're someone that's stuck in the, hey, I've been kind of focused in on either it's the vanilla strategies, the 401ks and IRAs. Maybe it's I went down the oil and gas path and I don't think that's right for me. If you need that step back, that 30,000 foot view to understand, what do I have and what do I need and what are my next steps. I always do financial second opinions with physicians all the time, just to kind of take that holistic view. Otherwise, they can reach out to us at grandvision.co, connect with us there. We can answer any questions at any time.
Yeah, man, I think the short-term rental, like I said, we'll call it a loophole. I think it's one of the best strategies out there if you're willing to put in the work. And the thing I'm most excited for is it seems to always be just that first domino. So everybody has kind of that first advanced strategy that they want to utilize. They've heard about it. They think it might be right. It's that one puzzle piece. And they go, what? I'm going to use that one. And they put it into their puzzle. And all of a sudden, it's like the floodgates open. There's like, oh my God, this worked how they said it would work. This is actually going to change my life. And all of a sudden now they're excited about the next domino and the next puzzle piece. And all of a sudden you just start seeing it come together. And I think that's why the biggest thing is it feels like that first path is like, oh, this is so hard. But once that first domino falls, it just takes off from there. So it's fun to look back and see, how quickly people change once they start down that path.
Absolutely. Start building your puzzle. We'll be back next Wednesday with another episode of Wealth Wednesday. As always, it's a pleasure, Mike. See you soon.
See you, man.